I've never told anyone this before. Not my wife. Not my therapist. Not even the guys I used to work night shifts with back in 2014. Because once you say something like this out loud, it becomes real. It forces you to admit it wasn't just a nightmare. It happened. And even now, years later, I still double lock my basement door every night, just in case. Let me start from the beginning. Back in 2014, I was broke and living in western Pennsylvania. My dad had passed away and left me his old house near the edge of an old industrial town, a house that needed more repairs than I could afford. So I took a night job at a cold storage facility outside town. It used to be a meat processing plant in the 60s before it got repurposed. But honestly, you could still smell the history in the walls. Concrete holds onto things: blood, mildew, rust. The job was easy enough: monitor the cameras, do floor rounds, check dock logs, and make sure the power didn't cut out. It paid just enough for me to keep the lights on. But after a few weeks, things got weird. And by weird, I don't mean ghost stories. I mean stuff that didn't make sense, even logically. There was this one section, Zone 4, that had been closed off for years. Nobody used it. Even the forklifts avoided it because it didn't get regular de-icing like the other floors. But around 3 a.m. one night, I saw motion on the cameras in Zone 4. Just a flicker. Thought it was a glitch. But then it happened again. And again. Something tall would walk past the back row of shelves, specifically between aisle 22C and 23D, always in the same pattern. No staff, no deliveries, just something moving. Smooth, deliberate, and tall. I zoomed in on the camera feed, and that's when I noticed something even stranger. There was a door behind shelf 22C. One that didn't show up on the blueprints. I zoomed in on the camera feed, and that's when I noticed something even stranger. There was a door behind shelf 22C. One that didn't show up on the blueprints. I checked. I went through the emergency exit plans, the safety protocols, even the archived inspection sheets. Nothing. That door didn't officially exist. But it was there, and that thing, whatever it was, kept moving near it. Now I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I report it? Call my boss? Maybe call security? I don't know. Maybe part of me didn't want to look like I was losing it. Another part, and this part still makes me sick to admit, wanted to know what was behind that shelf. Curiosity is a disease sometimes. So the next night, I brought a crowbar and my flashlight. At around 2:30 a.m., I made my rounds as usual, then quietly slipped into Zone 4. My boots crunched over frost-covered concrete. My breath fogged the air. Zone 4 always felt colder, even for a cold storage unit. When I reached aisle 22C, I saw that the shelf was older than the others. It was wooden, not metal. Dusty. Warped slightly, like it had been moved more than once. I dragged it forward with a loud screech across the floor. And there it was. The door. Jet black steel. No handle. No keypad. Just a door. And right in the middle, a small faded handprint. Human. Child-sized. I touched it. The moment my fingers pressed against the handprint, there was a soft click and the door slowly creaked open. I expected to see a supply room or maybe a passage to the basement. But instead, I saw a short stairwell leading down far deeper than the building's basement level. The concrete was darker, wet in spots. The smell was awful, like mold and rotting fabric. Still, I stepped down. The flashlight flickered twice before stabilizing. The walls were lined with cracked white tiles. A rusty handrail hugged the side. At the bottom, another door waited, metal again, but this one had a plaque. Room 107, personnel only. Which made no sense because according to the records, the facility only had 3 basement rooms and 107 wasn't one of them. I pushed the door open. Inside was a square room with an old gurney in the center, like something out of a medical ward. Shelves lined the walls with rusted tools, some of which I recognized: bone saws, clamps, but others I couldn't even name. The entire place reeked of ammonia and iron. In the far corner, a two-way mirror was bolted into the wall. That's when I noticed something that chilled me. There was no reflection. I walked in front of it. Nothing. Just the room. Then, after a few seconds, a reflection did appear, but it wasn't mine. It was a child. A little girl, maybe 8 or 9, standing motionless, hair covering her face. She lifted her head and smiled. I turned around. No one behind me. I turned back to the mirror. She was gone. Then the door slammed shut behind me. I ran to it and yanked on the handle. Nothing. The room grew colder. The flashlight flickered again. Then I heard it, faint at first, like a whisper, "Don't look away." I froze. The voice was coming from behind the mirror. Suddenly, a loud metallic bang echoed from the hallway. Then another. Then scratching. I backed into a corner, breathing heavily. My radio crackled in my vest. Control to Night Watch, come in. Do you copy? I reached for it with trembling hands. This is Night Watch. I'm in a room. I think I'm trapped. Something's wrong down here. Static. Then a different voice came through. We see you. I dropped the radio. I don't know how long I stood in that corner. Could have been minutes or hours. The lights dimmed until I was nearly in total darkness. Then the door creaked open on its own. I didn't think. I just ran. Up the stairs, through the steel door, past shelf 22C, and all the way back to the main office. I locked myself inside and watched the monitors. Zone 4 was dark until 3:12 a.m. That's when the camera caught movement again. This time it was me, standing in front of shelf 22C. Only, I never went back. The figure on the screen turned toward the camera, slowly raised a hand, and waved. And I swear to you, the smile on its face was mine. I quit the next day. No notice, no call, just walked away, packed my things and never went back. A few months later, I looked up the building's history. Found an article from 1972. Said the meat plant had been shut down after a worker died in an unlicensed medical room in the sub-basement. Apparently, the plant manager had been running illegal tests on employee endurance in freezing conditions. Some kind of cold resistance study for military contracts. They said a child had been found locked in a forgotten freezer unit. Alive, but barely. No one ever found out how she got there. The room was sealed, or so they thought. Sometimes I still hear tapping behind the walls of my basement, always around 3:12 a.m. And once, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the bathroom mirror, smiling back at me, even though my face was frozen in fear. If you ever find a door behind a shelf that shouldn't be there, don't open it. No matter what you hear,